Let's start on the cash management side. What would you say is the specificity and what has changed in the last few years as far as the cash management?
Sure. Tiffany is much more global than you might imagine, as well as much more vertically integrated than you might imagine. Half of our sales happen outside the United States. We have diamond polishing operations in several countries around the world. So from a cash management point of view, we have the issue of several pockets of cash, several operations in so many countries. And therefore it's visibility to that cash, being able to actively manage it. We don't have extensive finance teams in each of these markets. They're really either a unique retail business or they're a unique manufacturing business. So we have to, from the offices in New Jersey, we really have to have visibility as well as active responsibility over what's going on in each country.
And at what role play banks in all this? Because there were very different positions as far as how many bank partners, how to choose them, and so on, and what is their role? So.
Sure. In terms of bank partners, there is no one-size-fits-all. Even the largest banks in the world don't do everything everywhere well. So you do have to find out when you're in a certain market. We're about to open a store in Moscow later, the beginning of next year. So who is the best banking partner? The usual group that's in my bank credit facility, they don't have that strength. They don't have that capability. So you do have to look at who can do what where, and so it does introduce you to new banking partners, and maybe they're unique to the region, and very often they're probably somebody that is not the size of the most massive banks in the world, and then also it introduces you to banks that have. They're not the traditional American or Western world banks. So you're learning to meet the banks from Asia and from Africa and learning to work with them. So it's a new playing field.
Actually, in that area, you mentioned that some of our rankings are helpful. I understand.
Yeah, well, yes, they are. And actually, in sharing with Donna from DuPont, we were talking about banking partners in Africa. And so we've been in Namibia, Botswana, South Africa for a number of years, and certainly know the banking groups. So we were talking about who is in Global Finance's listings. And yes, I do know that bank, and actually I'm already working with that bank, and so when we do go into a new country, that actually helps a lot. The challenge is it a bank that does cash management? Is it a bank that does FX? So is it a bank that does payroll? Sometimes it's the most fundamental thing. So the lists are very helpful.
On the issue of risk management, the last few years have been tumultuous and many changes. What would you say are the key changes from a perspective of a treasurer?
In terms of financial risk management, the key changes are the demand and the need for visibility. And forecasting and accuracy of forecasting. So really going back and pushing down into the operating units. What are you doing today? What are you going to be doing tomorrow? What are you going to be doing 4 months from now? Where are the exposures? And some of it is educating to them the impact of those exposures, whether it's a currency exposure, whether it's a commodity exposure, and or whether it's a liquidity exposure. Cash is not portable across country lines. And so once you have that visibility, that communication, now the treasurer can work their game plan.
And that applies to counterpart risk as well.
Absolutely. Counterparty risk is something that we always have to pay attention to because we are dealing with new partners, and we're trying to find out about as much information as we can about these organizations, and so it is paramount on our radar.
Another topic is the issue of regulation, the lack of global regulation, and what effect it has specifically on the treasurer job. Is that a big issue?
Well, in the area of regulation, I think right now it's not necessarily the lack of regulation; it's the lack of clarity about the regulation. Is what are the rules? What are the requirements? In some cases, if I'm required to file a form, what does the form look like? Has it been created yet? It's some fundamentals of regulation. So I haven't really been worried so much about conflicting rules from one country to the next. I mean, I think in terms of things like money laundering and such, they all have very similar rules. It's really the clarification of what's required, both of me as a corporate, but also of my banking partner as a financial institution. And my point was that uncertainty, it creates paralysis. If you're not sure what to do, then you do nothing. And so really looking for more clarification. If the rule's going to be a draconian rule, make the rule, write the regulation so that I can act, but don't give me a question mark.